talking about grandparenting ABCs, and this week we're talking about F, and F is for forgiveness. This is a really incredibly important life lesson. All of us need to learn how to forgive, and yet it's one of the hardest things to do. Sometimes when we're hurt or offended, we just want to kind of wallow around in our sorrow and our hurt and our anger, but that isn't a very healthy response to being hurt. So what is forgiveness? It is an intentional and voluntary decision to change your feelings about that hurt or offense. It means that we choose to stop feeling angry, choose to stop feeling bitter, and basically move on with life. We'll talk in a little bit about some of the outcomes that we can have when we forgive, but we need to start this lesson by just remembering that every single human being is going to be offended at some point in their life, and probably multiple times. You know, the longer you live, the more difficulties you get into, and what will determine our emotional health from those hurts and those upsets will be how we respond. And that's why forgiveness is so important. You know, I've struggled with this. I've had times in my life where various people or circumstances upset me. And during one of those times, a very wise pastor's wife recommended a book to me. And the book is called Total Forgiveness by R.T. Kendall. Now, we will post this on our blog. We'll have a link to Amazon so you can find exactly the right book that I'm recommending. While you're at the website, don't forget to subscribe for our emails, newsletters, all that good stuff. But you'll definitely be able to find the name of the book if you're not able to write it down right now. But that book helped me a lot. And part of the reason it helped because it talked about forgiveness being a choice, but it didn't negate my feelings. And we have to remember those feelings of hurt and upset are real. Forgiving doesn't say that you just ignore those feelings. It says you accept them, but you choose to set them aside and you choose to move on. Basically, you choose to change your heart about how you feel about the circumstance. Now, forgiveness is a choice, and it's a legitimate wrong. You may have suffered a legitimate wrong, but how you choose to handle it determines whether you become captive to those negative emotions. And remember, while you may be stewing about your upset, the other person may not even know that they've upset you. They are going on about their life. They have no idea, and you're at home miserable and angry. We get stuck, and we don't want to. Forgiveness, when we choose to do it, helps us, number one, avoid being caught in that trap and being caught in anger and bitterness. But it also might bring healing to damaged relationships. Sometimes we can sit down, have a conversation with that person, and discover a route to healing, forgiveness, reconciliation. If they didn't know they offended you, many times they'll be willing to say, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I had no idea." If they did know, then your willingness to talk about it might actually help them too. So that's an opportunity that comes when we choose to practice the art of forgiveness, is that we might bring healing to damaged relationships. Now, here's a really key point. When we choose to forgive, we give ourselves the opportunity to live in joy and love. As soon as you let go of those negative feelings, that anger and that bitterness, it's like lightening a load off your heart, and you are able to experience joy. You can rejoice in the relationships that you do have that are in good shape, and just go forward in a much more positive way. So forgiveness gives us emotional freedom. Now, what's the power of teaching forgiveness to our grandchildren, and how can we do that? First of all, this is a life skill. So giving our grandchildren that kind of a life skill from a very young age, that's an amazing gift. And if we can help their parents teach them that, then that's a good thing for a grandparent to do. First of all, we can be an example by not grousing around the house about long ago hurts and letting them hear that conversation all the time. That teaches them to hold grudges, is essentially what it does. So we need to learn the lesson ourselves and then practice it in front of our grandchildren. We need to talk to them. When they come home from school or they're having difficulties as teenagers, don't just pass off their emotions because they're young and you say, oh, they'll get over it. Help them get over it. Help them to understand. Acknowledge that their feelings are real, but then teach them how to resolve those feelings. Teach them to choose to forgive instead of holding it inside. Remember, when we're hurt, we all tend to vocalize what we've been hurt about, and we may say things that we regret later. So be very cautious about that with our young ones. So I want to remind you again of that book that is so good. I am not a counselor. I'm a legal counselor, but not a psychologist. But I have seen this in practice so many times. I've seen people who have lived with anger and unforgiveness for decades. It's not a healthy place to be. It's not where we want to die. And it is definitely a life skill we want to teach our grandchildren. So here's the book title again. Total Forgiveness by R.T. Kendall. And remember, you can find that on our blog on our website, grandparentingatoz.com. We put an extra blog post up this week so that you'd be sure to have that link and you'd be able to find the book. If you're struggling with forgiveness, I highly recommend this. I have given it away to so many people because very many of us struggle with this skill. It's a life skill, but it's not one of the easiest ones to learn. So thanks again for following us at Grandparenting A to Z. We look forward to your comments. We hope that the content we're putting out is helping you and helping you in your relationships with building really strong, healthy, multi-generational dynamics in your family. Take care.